I think the whole discussion of hope, fingers crossed, Hopenhagen is utterly ridiculous and juvenile, frankly. There's no point in hoping for something that is not on the negotiating table.
How optimistic are you that Obama, China, India, the heads of state will get done what they need to get done, and that the global south and the underrepresented will be represented in the end?
I'm not at all optimistic about this deal. I think it's silly to even use the language of hope and optimism. I think at this point we know the way the UN works. We know what the deal is pretty much going to be. The deal that would reduce emissions to the extent that emissions need to be reduced according to what the science tells us is not on the table. So I think the whole discussion of hope, fingers crossed, Hopenhagen is utterly ridiculous and juvenile, frankly. There's no point in hoping for something that is not on the negotiating table. When that's not on the negotiating table, then you need to develop strategies for how to change the power dynamics so it's on the negotiating table in the future, which is why my hope is placed in these new movement alliances that are forming and not what's going to come out of the official negotiations. I think the fact that the U.S. is part of these discussions creates potential for change down the road. But if you look at what's on the table, the level of financing that's being discussed is an insult. We're talking about $10 billion max. Every single credible estimate starts at $100 billion in terms of what is needed for adapting to climate change. Mitigation, which is actually allowing countries to leapfrog over fossil fuels and go to clean technologies, which is what we really need. The UN team of UN researchers puts that at 500 to 600 billion. To me, it's dangerous to claim that in a context in which we know that the real need is around starting at 600 billion, to call 10 billion a success, which is what's going to happen at this meeting, is politically dangerous because it creates an illusion of having to address a dire crisis.
Right.
And I think serious activists have a responsibility to the truth, and sometimes NGOs are governed by other priorities, just like politicians are, where it's more important to be able to claim a success, because claiming a success means you can go raise more money. It means that you look positive and efficient and effective. I don't think the environmental movement should be governed by those concerns.
You're here as a writer for The Nation, writing a couple columns, I assume. A well-known author and activist. What else are you really paying attention to and taking interest in here during this?
I think what's most interesting about what's going on to me from the activist perspective is a convergence between the traditional environmental movement, the green movement, and what we might call the red movement, the groups that are more focused on economic issues, economic inequality, development. They've tended to be in separate camps, coming together occasionally, but not really part of a cohesive movement. And in fact, environmentalism is often cast as almost like a luxury issue. It's sort of something that people who can afford to worry about the environment worry about the environment. I really think that this is Copenhagen is throwing this all up in the air. I think what we're seeing here is a new kind of environmental movement with its pole in the global south. It's angrier. It's about people, not polar bears. It's identifying climate change as the single greatest threat to human development, which it is, because you can take whatever measures you want on poverty eradication, but it all gets blown backwards through droughts, floods, these extreme weather events. And this is what people are starting to understand. And groups like ActionAid, World Development Movement, even the Jubilee groups, these are groups that are traditionally focused on economic and trade policy. They're not focused on environmental policy. They've been brought to environmental policy because the environment is affecting all these other areas in which they're working. That, to me, it has tremendous potential, because suddenly the movement doubles in size because it's the convergence of all of these forces and across pollination. I think that has a lot of people excited.